any problem in that area. We were both very physically, like, yeah, we were great.
I'm going to be very honest with you. When you lay down with somebody, right, and it's just
In the chilling silence of Sister Wives Season 20's opening episode, the air feels heavier than it ever has in the long and complicated saga of the Brown family, and from the very first frames it becomes clear that this is not just another season, not just another rehashing of old arguments and recycled tears, but rather a brutal unveiling of long-suppressed truths, an unmasking of hidden wounds, and the beginning of what feels like the irreversible destruction of the family that once proudly stood as a public face of polygamy in America. This is not just television anymore. This is an autopsy of a dream, a live dissection of a family whose unity has collapsed under the crushing weight of favoritism, betrayal, exhaustion, and the unbearable ache of love turned into resentment. And as I, on your channel name, take you into this shocking and emotional recap, you must prepare yourself for an experience that cuts deeper than the polished TLC editing could ever intend, because behind every word spoken and every silence that hangs in the cold Flagstaff air is a truth more explosive than anything the cameras were meant to capture. The premiere begins not with the usual light-hearted montage of kids laughing, wives cooking, or Kody Brown preaching unity with his signature grin, but with the desolate pan of Coyote Pass, a piece of land once heralded as the promised foundation for the family's eternal togetherness, and now a graveyard of broken promises, barren, cold, and empty, with divided driveways leading to silent houses, each window dark and each wall whispering of separation. The silence is suffocating, and the absence of laughter tells viewers instantly that the Brown family has truly crossed into a new and dangerous chapter. We see Kody Brown alone, gripped by his own steering wheel, his knuckles pale and trembling with suppressed rage, and in his confessional he utters words that will haunt not just his wives but his audience. I never thought my family would come to this point. But here we are. And in all honesty, I'm not even sure whether I still care. That admission, delivered with clenched jaw and burning eyes, marks a turning point that Sister Wives fans in the United States and across the globe have waited for. Because the man who once demanded loyalty and obedience in the name of faith and family unity is now speaking the words of a man who has lost his mission, his heart, and perhaps his grip on everything that made him patriarch of this plural marriage. On your channel name, I tell you, this moment isn't just shocking television, it's history. The precise second Kody Brown publicly confesses apathy toward the very dream he built his life upon. But the silence of the cul-de-sac is not just about Kody, because the ghost of Christine looms over every scene like a storm cloud that will not move, and though she officially walked away from the family seasons ago, her presence is more alive than ever in the heartbreak etched across Janelle's face, in the hollow stare of Mary's lonely eyes, and even in Robyn's quivering lips as she insists she never wanted to be the last wife standing. Christine's departure is not just a past event, it is a catalyst, a rupture that continues to bleed into every corner of the family's lives. And as Janelle sips tea in her dimly lit living room, she admits with a weary voice that Christine's exit gave her confidence, but it also left her stranded in her own war, fighting battles with Kody that she now realizes may never end. Mary, too, finally reveals the dark truth fans in America have long suspected, stating in her confessional with cold clarity, "Christine got out. Janelle has left halfway. Me. It's been years since I was out." That admission that she emotionally checked out of this marriage long before anyone else cuts like a knife, because fans have watched Mary cling for over a decade, fighting for scraps of affection, clinging to the hope that Kody might one day return her love. And here she admits that she was gone long before. An admission that is as devastating as it is liberating, a moment of raw honesty that TLC could never spin, a moment where her truth slashes through years of denial. Then comes Robyn, the polarizing figure who TLC frames with tears and trembling lips, declaring, "This is not what I wanted. Being the lone wife left was never anything I desired. This is no longer a marriage. It's tragic." And yet her performance, deliberate pauses, inconsistent makeup that hints at reshoots, and eyes that seem more calculated than vulnerable, leaves American fans outraged, convinced that Robyn is not just an unwilling victim but the orchestrator of the entire collapse, the woman Kody sacrificed everything for. And when Kody himself, in a confessional drenched with venom, admits, "I sacrificed everything for Robyn. For her, I gave up my children, my marriages, and my other relationships. I'm not even sure if it was worthwhile now." The words detonate like a bomb, confirming what audiences on my channel and beyond have suspected all along. Robin was not just Cody's favorite, she was his obsession, his downfall, and now perhaps his deepest regret. This single line reframes the entire narrative of sister wives in the American cultural imagination, turning Robin from the last standing wife into the lightning rod of destruction, the person who may have completed the family or destroyed it entirely, depending on whom you ask, but either way, the center of the implosion. But the most explosive confrontation of episode 1 arrives midway when Cody and Janelle finally face each other in person at a restaurant after months of estrangement. And from the first seconds, the air is electric, heavy with unresolved fury, Cody insisting with searing eyes, "Janelle, I'm not sure what you want from me. You've made it apparent that you no longer respect me, no longer trust me, and to be honest, you don't even like me anymore." And with the calm but devastating firmness of a woman who has finally found her voice, Janelle replies, "You're correct, Cody. I don't. The man I married is not you. My children no longer even know you as their father. You are obsessed with control and you are resentful and angry. You're not the man we once followed, you're a stranger." The camera captures Cody's hand slamming against the table, his voice erupting into rage as he shouts that his wives betrayed him, that they banded together to tear the family apart. But Janelle does not flinch, and with the precision of a scalpel, she delivers the line that reverberates across social media in America and beyond. "No, Cody. Your obsession with Robin over everyone else is what destroyed this family, and we're done pretending otherwise." That sentence, cold and final, is not just Janelle's truth. It is the truth fans have screamed for years, the truth Cody denied in every interview and every family meeting, and hearing it spoken aloud on national television marks the collapse of his last shred of patriarchal authority. In the aftermath of the first half of Sister Wives Season 20 Episode 1's harrowing premiere, the weight of the unspoken truths lingers like smoke after a house fire, and while the surface drama already feels explosive, the deeper layers of what TLC chose to reveal, and what it deliberately concealed, create a far more unsettling picture, one that my viewers in the United States deserve to see without the filter of clever editing or staged confessionals. Because while the network sells us the image of a reality show, the reality here is raw, messy, and far darker than producers want the average audience to process. Sister Wives has always been about illusion, the illusion of unity, the illusion of faith-driven harmony, the illusion that Cody Brown could lead a plural family without favoritism or fracture. But Season 20 tears the veil away with surgical precision, revealing not only the cracks in the relationships but the manipulation of the cameras themselves. Because every jump cut, every suspicious reshoot, every carefully placed silence is its own confession of how much uglier the truth really was. One of the most telling examples of this is the infamous restaurant confrontation between Cody and Janelle, a scene that dominated the first episode, its tension thick enough to smother the viewer. And yet when you watch closely you notice the cuts. Lines clipped mid-sentence, tone shifts that betray splicing, facial reactions that don't match the audio. All clear indicators that TLC trimmed and reshaped the argument into something barely digestible for cable audiences. But if you read between the frames, as sharp-eyed fans in America immediately did, you realize that the raw fight was far uglier, that Janelle's calm but forceful words likely cut deeper, and Cody's rage spiraled further, perhaps even into accusations and language too damning for TLC to air. Sources close to production have whispered that Janelle outright called Cody a dictator, that she accused him of sabotaging his own marriages by gaslighting his wives and rewriting history, and that Cody's response, accusing Janelle of conspiring with Christine to deliberately tear him down, was so venomous that producers had no choice but to scale it back, not because it wasn't real, but because it was too real, too shocking, too naked an exposure of the Brown family's implosion. And so the network gave us the safe version, leaving fans outraged but not annihilated. But the truth, as we expose hereon, is that this was not just a fight about respect. It was a public unraveling of Cody's identity as patriarch, a stripping away of the authority he has clung to for 20 years, and once that mask falls there is no putting it back on. Then comes Robin, and here the manipulation grows even more insidious, because in episode 1 she is framed as both the tragic heroine and the subtle villain, her tears streaming, her voice breaking, her confessional words trembling with what seems to be regret, as she insists she never wanted this outcome, that she never asked to be the only wife left, that this is not what she dreamed of when she joined the family. And yet the careful observer sees the cracks in the performance, the Inconsistencies in her makeup from shot to shot suggesting multiple takes, her pauses so deliberate they feel scripted, her delivery too theatrical for raw grief, and fans in America were quick to notice that this was not unfiltered emotion but manufactured sympathy, a performance engineered to salvage Robin's image at a time when audiences are united in blaming her for the downfall of the family. The manipulation is almost insulting to loyal fans who have watched the show for over a decade. Because we know Robin's role, we've seen the favoritism, we've endured Cody's open prioritization of her and her children, and for her to now cry and shake as if she is the victim feels not just false but cruelly revisionist. And when Cody himself admits, "I sacrificed everything for Robin," the statement pierces through all the staged sympathy, exposing her not as the victim but as the magnet that pulled Cody away from his other wives, the center of gravity that shifted the family out of orbit, whether she orchestrated it or not. This dual framing, Robin as both villain and victim, is not an accident, it's a production choice, a strategy designed by TLC to ensure that no matter how much hate she receives online, she remains central to the story, a lightning rod who guarantees viewership. Because love her or hate her, Robin Brown commands attention, and in the ruthless business of reality television, attention is everything. But the most devastating revelations of episode 1 are not about editing tricks or villain-victim narratives. They come from Cody himself, and not just from his words, but from his body language, the unspoken physical cues that betray the crumbling foundation of his identity. Body language experts in the United States who analyzed his movements noted that his fists clench almost involuntarily when confronted, that he leans forward aggressively in conversations as if to physically impose control, that his eyes dart away when his wives challenge him, avoiding their gaze not out of shame but out of fear of being exposed, and most chillingly, that his lips curl in moments of self-confession, such as when he admits to giving everything up for Robin, a curl that suggests disgust not at his wives but at himself, as though somewhere in the pit of his soul, Cody Brown is finally realizing that he is the architect of his own collapse. For years fans accused him of gaslighting, of favoritism, of neglect, and he deflected, denied, preached about loyalty and faith, but in this premiere his body betrays him, his trembling hands, his tightening jaw, his hollow stare all screaming what his words refuse to, that he has lost control, that he knows it, and that he cannot face the reality of his own downfall. Meanwhile, the children's voices, Gabriel's tears, Garrison's rejection, the collective grief of kids who feel abandoned, strip away whatever defense Cody might cling to, because it is one thing for a wife to call him out, another thing for fans to criticize him online, but when his own children look into the camera and declare that he is no longer their father, that he chose Robin's children over them, that the man they once trusted has become a stranger, there is no editing trick, no TLC manipulation, no staged confessional that can soften that blow. In America, where family ties run deep, where fatherhood is sacred, those confessions are devastating, and they paint Cody not just as a flawed husband but as a failed father in the eyes of his own blood. And then, as if to drive the final nail, Mary delivers her confessional not with rage, not with tears, but with quiet devastation, admitting that she has not loved Cody in years, that she stayed out of fear, that she already failed herself, failed her child, failed her own happiness. And that single moment is perhaps the most shocking of all, because for over a decade Mary was the symbol of endurance, the wife who clung despite rejection, who endured humiliation in the hope of reconciliation, and now she strips it all away, confessing that her endurance was not strength but fear, that her loyalty was not love but desperation, and in that instant the myth of sister wives collapses entirely. What we see in episode 1, as revealed hereon, is not just the unraveling of a plural marriage, not just the continuation of last season's drama, but the execution of a dream. As Sister Wives Season 20 pushes forward beyond its already devastating premiere, the looming symbol of Coyote Pass becomes the ghostly centerpiece of the Browns' implosion, because what was once supposed to be a sacred piece of land, a covenant property binding the family together in unity, has now transformed into a desolate battlefield of broken promises, legal standstills and unspoken grudges. And in episode 1, as the camera sweeps across its barren landscape, Americans watching from their living rooms can feel the cold truth radiating off the screen. This land is not a dream anymore, it is a tombstone, a silent monument to everything Cody Brown swore would last forever but instead crumbled before the world's eyes. And here on USA Content, I will tell you exactly why Coyote Pass is not just about land or houses, but about power, favoritism, and betrayal. For years, Cody used the vision of Coyote Pass as both carrot and stick, dangling the dream of future homes to keep his wives invested while simultaneously withholding progress to keep them under his control. And now, as we stand on the edge of the 20th season, that empty property reveals his failure in the starkest possible way. No houses, no unity, no family gatherings, just silence, dust, and bitterness, the final proof that his promises were as empty as the land itself. The United States audience has long understood land as a symbol of stability, of legacy, of the American dream, and yet for the Browns, Coyote Pass has become the opposite. A fractured promise, a dream deferred until it rotted, and fans across America now recognize that every wide shot of its dry soil is really TLC's not-so-subtle admission that Cody's empire is dead. And then there is the cultural weight of Sister Wives itself, because this show has never just been about one family, it has been about the larger conversation of plural marriage in America, about faith, freedom, and the search for identity within systems that demand obedience. And Season 20 exposes in brutal clarity that the supposed unity of plural marriage cannot withstand favoritism, inequality, or neglect. On USA Content, I dive into the way this season has already been received by you. Audiences, fans on social media platforms like Twitter, Reddit, and Facebook exploded after episode 1, not just with anger toward Cody, but with a chilling recognition that what we are seeing is not a scripted soap opera but a cultural collapse in real time, the disintegration of a patriarchal system that promised love but delivered pain. Americans know family is sacred, and when Cody slammed his hand on that restaurant table, when Gabriel cried that his father had abandoned him, when Garrison declared he no longer considers Cody his dad, the nation collectively recoiled, because in a country where fatherhood is revered, those moments cut deeper than any staged confession could. And while TLC tried to soften the blow with edits, with Robin's res-hot tears, with jump cuts designed to shape Cody's rage into digestible chunks, audiences are too sharp, they see through it, and here on USA Content, I call it what it is. Manipulation meant to protect Cody's image while still milking the collapse for ratings. But no matter how many edits they make, the truth leaks through. The way Cody's jaw clenches, the way his eyes avoid his wives, the way his entire posture screams of a man cornered by the truth. A man losing not just his family but his narrative. In American television history, few reality shows have reached this level of raw exposure, where the masks are stripped away and the participants, especially Cody, can no longer pretend. And that is why Season 20 is not just another chapter but a cultural reckoning. The USA audience has had enough of the facade, enough of Cody's sermons about loyalty while he openly sacrifices wife after wife at Robin's altar, enough of TLC's edits trying to polish dysfunction into digestible drama. What people want now is truth, and episode 1 finally delivered glimpses of it. The symbolism of Coyote Pass, the confessions of the children, the implosion of Janelle's loyalty, Mary's shocking honesty, and Robin's transparent performance. These are not just elements of a TV episode, they are the funeral rites of the Brown family dream, televised for America to witness. And here on USA Content, we are not watching with passive curiosity, we are watching with the recognition that this is the final disintegration of a system, a man, and a family, and the shockwaves of this collapse will define not just the rest of Season 20 but the cultural legacy of Sister Wives itself in the United States. As Sister Wives Season 20 Episode 2 presses forward, the cracks in the narrative widen and one face remains framed in the center of every shot. Robin, the so-called favorite wife, the lightning rod for the outrage of America. The woman TLC has positioned not only as Cody's last defender but as both villain and tragic figure. And here on USA Content, I am telling you that this editing choice is no accident, because American reality TV thrives on clear archetypes. The fallen hero, the betrayed. Wives, the heartbroken children, and the wife cast as either the savior or the usurper. And Robin now embodies both, a paradox designed to keep audiences hooked. In one moment the camera lingers on her trembling lips, the way she whispers through tears that all she ever wanted was family, and in the very next, it cuts to Cody parroting her words like gospel, a man repeating his queen's lines as though they are divine truth, and American viewers see through this. They see the performance, the control, the manipulation, and they rage because in a country that values fairness, Robin's elevated pedestal feels like betrayal itself. On USA Content, I break down the psychology at play here. Robin's tears, constant and overflowing, no longer move audiences to sympathy. Instead, they spark fury because by season 20, the tears have become currency, exchanged for Cody's loyalty, while Janelle, Christine, and Mary bled silently without reward. The United States audience doesn't forget Christine's kitchen table heartbreak, Janelle's quiet strength, or Mary's decades of isolation. And when Robin cries yet again while the others sit silenced, Americans are not weeping with her, they are shaking their heads, calling her the architect of favoritism, the wedge that split the family into fragments. And yet, TLC plays this dual game brilliantly, because drama sells, and what better way to keep ratings sky high than to make Robin simultaneously pitted and despised? A woman audiences can shout at but also gossip about the next morning at work. And here on USA Content, I expose how these editing tactics are tailor-made for you. Viewers who crave both villains and tragic heroines. The outrage has already spilled across social media, with thousands of Americans dubbing Robin Sobbin Robin, a nickname that has trended before but now feels cemented, and the memes, the commentary, the YouTube reactions, they all fuel the machine, ensuring that every episode pulls in not just viewers but passionate critics who spread the show's reach far beyond TLC's airwaves. In episode 2, Robin's confrontation with Janelle is staged like a courtroom battle, her voice rising, her tears flowing, while Cody hovers beside her like a bodyguard. And when Janelle finally fires back with a measured, piercing line about being sidelined for years, the USA audience roared, because in that moment, the underdog finally spoke truth to power. And here lies the genius and cruelty of season 20. The wives no longer orbit around Cody, they are speaking directly to America. They are speaking through the screen to every viewer who has ever felt ignored, overlooked, or discarded. And that is why this season resonates so profoundly in the United States. Because beyond polygamy, beyond TLC, this is a story about injustice, favoritism, and the human hunger for fairness. On USA Content, I emphasize this point. Americans are tired of Cody's excuses, tired of Robin's tears, and increasingly vocal about how TLC frames these narratives, with petitions already circulating to either cancel the show or reboot it with the ex-wives front and center. And isn't that the ultimate twist? What was once Cody's family has become America's cautionary tale, a story that outgrew its patriarch and now belongs to the wives who dared to step out of his shadow. With Robin still clinging to Cody, America sees not loyalty but desperation, not family but isolation, and as the season unfolds, every scene with her is no longer interpreted as a plea for understanding but as evidence of imbalance. And that is the shockwave carrying Sister Wives Season 20 into history. If there is one part of Sister Wives Season 20 Episode 2 that cannot be ignored, it is the uprising of the children, because for years they have been background figures, seen but rarely heard, their faces used to illustrate family unity while the adults carried the drama. But now the silence has shattered and what pours out is raw, unfiltered pain. And here on USA Content I will tell you this. The children's voices cut deeper than any wife's confession ever could, because when Gabriel, with tears in his eyes, looks at the camera and admits that he can no longer pretend his father cares for him, America stopped in its tracks, the entire audience realizing that this wasn't just reality television anymore. This was generational trauma spilling into prime time. Garrison's blunt declaration, "I don't consider him my dad anymore," echoed like a thunderclap because in the United States where fatherhood is revered, respected, and often idealized, hearing a son strip that title away hit like a hammer blow. And on USA Content, I explain why this moment is bigger than entertainment. It is cultural, it is personal, it is every abandoned child in America finally seeing their pain reflected back at them through the faces of the brown kids. The rebellion is not loud, it is not chaotic, it is devastatingly calm, and that is what makes it shocking. These children, once eager to please their father, now speak with the finality of people who have already mourned the death of a relationship that technically still exists. And when Gabriel says he cannot forgive being ignored during the darkest moments of his life, Americans everywhere felt the gut punch, because they know what it is to need someone and be met with silence. TLC, ever the puppeteer, amplifies these moments with close-ups, slow cuts, and somber music. But even without production tricks, the truth lands heavy. Cody Brown is losing not only his wives but his children, and to millions of American viewers, that is the true tragedy. Here on USA Content, I dig into how audiences are responding, not with apathy, not with gossip, but with outrage and solidarity, flooding forums, comment sections, and Twitter feeds with support for Gabriel, Garrison, and the others, calling them the real victims of Cody's obsession with Robin. And for perhaps the first time in Sister Wives history, the children are not accessories to their parents' drama. They are the moral compass, the truth tellers, the ones who rip away every excuse and every lie. This rebellion marks a turning point in the American reception of the show, because when kids speak out, audiences listen differently, no longer seeing this as polygamy drama but as a broken father failing his children on national television. And that's what makes season 20 so explosive. Not the fights, not the tears, but the children finally finding their voices and America watching with bated breath, whispering, "Enough is enough." Kody Brown is not softening. He's hardening. Instead of humbling himself in the face of loss, he's doubling down, clinging tighter to control. This version of Kody is dangerous. A man fully aware that he's losing power but refusing to surrender it. Janelle's transformation. Quiet no more for years, Janelle was labeled the quietly strong wife. Calm, composed, the one who endured chaos with dignity. But in season 20 that Janelle is gone. She confronts Kody directly, firm and unyielding, with the devastating line, "You're not the man I married." She doesn't cry. She doesn't tremble. She states it as fact. The voice of a woman already emotionally divorced, simply waiting for the paperwork to catch up. Insiders reveal Christine's departure gave Janelle the confidence she needed. Watching Christine thrive outside of polygamy proved life beyond Kody wasn't only possible, it was liberating. For the first time, viewers see Janelle as more than Cody's wife. She is a woman reclaiming her autonomy. Mary's quiet revolution. Perhaps the most heartbreaking reveal came from Mary. She admitted she hasn't loved Kody in years. Many suspected it, but hearing it aloud shook fans to the core. TLC's cinematography amplified the pain. Mary sat on an oversized couch, dwarfed by empty space, a visual metaphor for loneliness and abandonment. Yet as she spoke, the camera zoomed closer, reclaiming her story. For the first time, Mary wasn't a side character in Cody's journey. She was the lead in her own. Viewers flooded social media not with pity, but with encouragement, declaring this was Mary's moment of freedom. The children break their silence. Season 20 has given the Brown children a platform like never before. Gabriel and Garrison's confessions were raw, exposing that Kody isn't just